Now, I want to get into this past year, 2017-18 season. We're going to call it the year in review, and we're going to look at growth. We're also going to look at rule changes that went in last year, and then talk about the realignment that happened last year as well. Now, as you can see on this screen, we show our growth throughout the course of the year. You see in 2001, we started with 34 teams, and now we're up to 308 in just 17, 18 years, which is incredible growth. We're very, very proud of that. You might also notice that we didn't have a ton of new growth from 17 to 18. We did add quite a few new teams, but we did lose some teams that were struggling. But we hope for the 2019 season that we will get back onto par with what we're normal with as far as growing about 15 to 20, netting 15 to 20 new teams each year. This is a slide we're pretty proud of as well. This is all of our state representation. 45 out of the 50 states we have a member university in. I believe the only 5 states we are not in is Hawaii, Alaska, New Mexico, Vermont, and Maine. It is our goal, and Garrett, as he's adding new teams, it is our goal to be in the lower continental 48. So hopefully we'll have that up to 48 in the next couple of years, if not sooner. So that's what we're really excited about. We also have the University of Windsor up in Canada. This graph is just to give you a little idea of where we kind of sit against other college baseball leagues. You see us right in the middle. Obviously, the largest is NCAA Division III. With opening up Division III just this past year, we did have 35 teams, so we're the lowest on that chart, but we expect that number to grow significantly this next coming year. So you see us right in the middle there, right behind the NAIA and right in front of the JUCO D2. So we're sitting nicely and expect to grow continually throughout the years. Now, I do want to talk about these rule changes, and keep in mind, just remember that these are rule changes that have already been implemented. These aren't the rule changes that were just passed at this past Rules Committee meeting that happened at the end of July. These are already in the rule book. So I just want to go over a few key topics that we want to discuss. The first one is that number 1, and I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but if you're following along, number 1, teams that play an ineligible player, it's not deemed an automatic forfeit anymore. It's subject to a forfeit. And we implemented some other rules regarding this verbiage, but basically it comes down to a lot of teams were saying if a player was not on the roster and he played, well, it's an automatic forfeit. Well, we changed it to subject to a forfeit, and you had to go through the proper channels of protesting the game in order for that to become a forfeit. So we just added some verbiage into the rule book. Another one is faculty. They are eligible to compete, but they must meet the eligibility requirements. And this one, in the past rule books, we just flat out said faculty members are not eligible to compete. Now, there's a lot of students that are deemed faculty, maybe work in the student rec center. They are deemed faculty. We just wanted to clean it up that if you are a faculty member, but you meet all the eligibility requirements, you're a full-time student, you have a 2.0 GPA, you're not on academic probation warning, that you are eligible to compete in the NCBA. Point number 4, unless mutually agreed upon by both teams and the regional director, a conference series cannot begin earlier than 8 a.m. local time on Saturday. We always allow the home team to determine when games are going to be played. The field, the times, the location. But we've had some teams come to us saying the home team saying we have to play Friday night at 8 o'clock. And we can't get down there. We have school. So we put in a rule that said you cannot start a conference series until it's Saturday, 8 a.m., unless you mutually agreed upon by both teams and the regional director. So if you both agree to play at 8 o'clock on Friday night, along with getting the permission from the regional director, there's no issues. But if there's no agreement, you can't start it before 8 a.m. on Saturday. Now, allowing NCBA sanctioned spring tournaments to be eligible to be competed as 7-inning games as long as they are NCBA sanctioned. We put this rule in place because there were a lot of teams and individuals putting on tournaments in the spring, and they were counting those games as non-conference games. And the problem that came into effect was any single game between two college teams, NCBA teams, has to be at the Division I level, has to be played as a 9-inning game. Now, a lot of these tournaments were being played as 7-inning games. Double headers can be played as 7-inning games at the Division I level, but a single game between two teams has to be played as a 9-inning game in order for it to be counted as a non-conference game. So what we put in place is, if you are running these tournaments and you want these games to be deemed NCBA sanctioned, they have to fill out an application, send it in. If we agree to the application and say absolutely, then any single games can be played as 7-inning games. They don't have to be a 9-inning game. So that's something we put into the rule book this past year to help clean that stuff up. We did update the halted game rule. Should a visiting team tie or take the lead in the top half of the inning, this came into play, I believe, is in the Gulf Coast. It was, I believe, the bottom of the the top of the 6th inning. The visiting team was down going into the top of the 6th inning. They came back, tied up the game, and I even believe they took the lead in the top of the 6th inning. Weather came into play, and the game was called. Now, our rules before this stated that we go back to the last completed full inning after 5-4 have been played, which would have, even though this visiting team tied or took the lead in the top half of the 6th inning, even though they took that lead, we revert back to the 5th inning, which would have put the home team as the winner. So we just updated this rule, put this into play to protect those visiting teams from that. We got a question the first of the night. I'm nervous.
Larry Valdez Jr. asks, are there any special exceptions for any new coming schools that have no athletics, like Nevada State College?
I mean, if you're a team that wants to join our association, you have to be a registered student organization or club sport on campus. If you meet that requirement, then you are more than welcome to join our association. I hope that answers the question, Larry. But if not, we will get you an answer, a sufficient answer for you here at a later time. We also, getting back to the rule changes we put into this past year, we are capping the number of non-rostered players in the dugout to 4. We've had situations, and we saw it a lot at the World Series, where teams had... Go ahead.
Larry Valdez Jr. also asks, is it possible for NCBA club teams to play versus NCAA Division I or NCAA Division II or Division III schools?
Great question, Larry. Yes. Our rules stipulate that our teams, our NCBA Division I, Division II, Division III teams, can play against any other college baseball team, whether it's NCAA Division I, NCBA Division AA, Division II, JUCO, community college, and count those games as non-conference games. As long as it is a collegiate baseball team, our teams can play those teams and count them as non-conference games. But getting back to the rule, we capped the number of non-rostered players to 4. And we just saw at the World Series a lot of teams with a lot of extra personnel in their dugout. People coming in and out, and we just wanted to make sure there was a number. You can have 30 guys on your roster. You can only have 4 non-rostered players also in the dugout at one time. So we just put a number on there. We did add courtesy runners, allowed for catcher only at the Division II level. I know that one was a pretty tight one, as you can see, 4 votes to yes. We also did implement portable mound requirements. I know a lot of teams are using turf fields where there's a portable mound. We have been notified that some of these fields have just the ramp, the turf to ramp, as the portable mound, which is dangerous. If you go off to the left or right as the pitcher, you can injure yourself. So what we implemented was requirements for a portable turfed mound. It has to have 4 sloping sides on it, just to help with preventing injuries. Go ahead, Alec. Is it from Larry?
It is from Larry.
Awesome.
Larry also asks, are there any other club sports organizations that are similar to the NCBA but for other sports?
Say that again. Read it again.
Are there any other club sports organizations that are similar to the NCBA, but for other sports?
Yes, we have plenty. I mean, Cult Club Sports has, is a umbrella organization of NCBA, falls under it. We have collegiate club basketball. We have collegiate club football. Collegiate, what am I missing? Club softball. So yes, there are other collegiate collegiate leagues under the Cult Club Sports umbrella. We did, at this past Rules Committee meeting last year, we did change the makeup of the Rules Committee. We changed the makeup. Normally, it was all 8 Division I regional directors were able to attend the meeting, along with the league representatives and the president, plus the team reps, the D1 and D2 team reps. It was a lot of people, so we tried, and a lot of times couldn't get all those people in the room at the same time. So what we did was streamlined it to Division I league representative, Division II league representative, Division III representative, the league president, the 2 team reps, the D1 and D2 team rep, and then elected Division I regional director, which brought us to 7. It got us all in the room together. It was a lot of great minds. So I think it helped out a lot of those topics that we were discussing. Another big topic that was tightly contested was keeping the Division II World Series dates the same, but move the regional playoffs back a week earlier. We'll discuss it later in the meeting, but we changed it back. It was more of, I guess, an experimental year, but we just took a weekend out of the season that teams could have been playing. We noticed that a lot of teams didn't get a ton of games in, so we did move that back, but that was something that was tightly contested, and we're excited that we're able to put in another week for the Division II teams. I'm not going to go over every single one of these, but you can certainly download the presentation and look at these rule changes. And if you have any questions about those, please let us know. Go ahead, Alec.
Larry asks, is it possible to create scholarships and administer athletic scholarships to club team athletes? Absolutely.
If that's how you're able to do it, if you're able to provide a club team scholarships, that's more on you guys. If you're able to do it, great. We allow scholarshiped club players to play as long as they meet our eligibility requirements. I want to talk about Division I realignment. Again, this was what we realigned last year. In the Great Lakes, we moved Ferris State to Division II and added the University of Windsor. I believe Ferris State was a team that met the auto relegation rule down to Division II. One of the stipulations for moving a team down is to bring a team up. The University of Windsor, who's been a Division II powerhouse in our league the last few years, we moved them up, and they did a great job at the Division I level. Lots happened in the North Atlantic. We lost Boston University, but we were able to put Sacred Heart into their place in the NAR East Conference, and added Loyola Maryland from Division II to the North Atlantic, and we also dropped SUNY Cortland and added Slippery Rock. So we added quite a few Division II teams to the North Atlantic. Slippery Rock was a great example. They made it to regionals this past year in their first year at Division I. They're a really, really well-run program. They won a Division II national championship the year prior. So they're a great program, and it just shows that our rules are working, that teams that are playing well at the Division II level coming up, they're competing. So it's a great thing that we have in place with our relegation and promotion rules. In the Northern Pacific, we did have Seattle University drop out of the league, so we just had to do some realignment within that conference. We moved Washington out of the north and added them to the west, and we moved Montana out of the south and added them to the north. We also added a new team, LDS Business College, which was a first-year program. Normally, we don't add new teams right into the Division I level, but for LDS Business College, they were a team that just didn't have any other teams close by to them, and the Division I NOPAC region was actually the best conference for them. Alec?
Larry asks, does the NCBA have any programs or assistance to colleges that want to move into the NCAA or NAIA?
No. No, I mean, I would say, if we've had teams that have participated in our organization and they have moved into NAIA and I believe JUCO, but I would suggest joining the NCBA, playing some years, and if it's a move where you want to move into the NAIA or the NJCAA, that's you're more than welcome to do that. Getting back to realignment, the South Atlantic, we dropped Georgia Southern out of that region and put them down in Division II, and added Georgia Tech from the West Conference to the East. Just recently, we added them back to the West Conference. We did drop FIU out of the league, and we added Florida Gulf Coast, which was another powerhouse at the Division II level. And that we also added Mississippi State. Again, like LDS Business College, was a new team to our association. Obviously a bigger named program than LDS Business College, but they were in the same situation where there wasn't a lot of teams out in Division II that they could compete against. So the Division I was the better fit, and they did a great job in their first season as well. And lastly, in the Southern Pacific region, not a lot happened. We did drop Stanford down out of the North Conference to Division II, and we just added Cal State Chico into their place. And Cal State Chico, another team that made the regional playoffs in their first year at the Division I level. As far as Division II goes, I think I touched on it earlier, but one big thing is we did rename the districts to regions. With the opening of Division III, we wanted to get Division II on par with Division I or close to it. So one of the first things we did was make that switch from districts to regions. All 8 regions were comprised of 3 conferences, which is great because that allows for the at-large bid. In years past, we were not able to have an at-large bid because I believe all 8 regions, maybe it was all 7 regions, 7 out of the 8 regions had 4 conferences, which didn't allow for an at-large bid. 15 of the 20 previous D2 teams were moved down to newly formed NCBA Division III. So with the opening of Division III, we were able to take some of the teams that were struggling at the Division II level and move them down to Division III. Operationally, it just helps teams out to get down to a lower level and competing against teams better suited against them. Florida Gulf Coast, Windsor, Slippery Rock, CSU Chico, and Loyola Maryland, which I talked about in the Division I slide, all moved up to Division I. And as far as teams dropping from D1 to D2, we had Ferris State, SUNY Cortland, Georgia Southern moving from D1 to D2. We have another question.
Got a couple questions, actually.
Whoa.
Noah Murray asks, is there any discounts for baseball pants, belts, socks, or anything offered by the NCBA?
Was the name Noah?
Yes.
Absolutely. And we will be talking. Rawlings is our official uniform supplier of the NCBA. Paul Williams will be up later in the meeting, so Noah, make sure you stay with us. But he will be going over all the discounts, all the products offered. It's incredible pricing. So yes, we do offer a lot of discounts, baseball pants, belts, all that kind of stuff.
And Larry asks, when a new school with no athletics comes into the NCBA, are they confined to a certain division, or can they go directly to Division I competition?
Well, I believe Nevada State College is where Larry is talking. We have a Division II region out that way. If you were to join the NCBA, you'd be placed in Division II. I'm assuming the Pacific South Conference is what you'd be placed on. So I think we can confirm that. But I believe you would start in the Division II level. If you're successful at the Division II level, we can move you up to Division I. But first year program, you would start at the D2 level. Any more, Alec? Good. How to ask a question. Type your name, your team affiliation, and your question in the comments section, and I will try my best to answer that question to the best of my ability. Now, 2019, this is exciting. Our season's about